Hello and welcome to the TSL Talk after what's been another big weekend of local footy. I'm joined by my colleague Adam Smith. Adam, Glenorchy. Outside the bottom three teams, are they the worst team in the TSL at the moment?
Oh, on current form, you'd have to say so, wouldn't you? Then no, it's 4-0 start to the year, and they're flying. We all thought that they were a genuine premiership contender, and the wheels have fallen off pretty bad. And they've defeated the three bottom sides in the last 7 or 8 weeks, and they've got the 100-point hammering by Launceston, which a few teams have. But yeah, there's a few problems out at KG5.
Is it just is it merely injuries, and or is there something else deeper there that we should be focusing on?
Yeah, I don't know. Every side gets injuries. Clarence had them earlier in the year. Burnie's had a few. I think we've seen the last few weeks. So clearly their depth isn't probably what we thought it was going to be. They recruited a few players and high-end players, but I think it's the second-tier guys at the moment that are really struggling. You take those guys out, and teams like Clarence had the same thing, but they've got their bottom players are better than Glenorchy's, and it's clearly been shown.
Probably what we have glossed over a little bit this season, especially as we don't see them much down here in Hobart, is just how good Launceston is.
Yeah, look, they're flying, and we all sort of think that Clarence are probably maybe even premiership favourites at the moment, but sort of you go through it and 7 home games, Launceston. They've only had one margin under 100 points at home, and that was against Burnie. I think their average winning margin there is 111. They win games away home as well. They're flying, and it's all set up for a big second half of the season for them.
We saw last year they going to the finals once they lost Nathan O'Donoghue, how much they relied on Brian Finch to kick all their goals. But Brian Finch is still kicking the goals, but they've got a much more even spread. They've got Sonny Whiting down there, O'Donoghue's back, Scott Stevens, these kind of guys, they're all chipping in.
Yeah, and it's funny because they didn't really go out and recruit heavily during the off-season. They picked, Sonny Whiting came back to the club, and I think they got Ryan DeVissa from Melbourne, but it's just an improvement within the club, it looks like, that's really sort of taken them to the next level.
And you look at the Hobart Football Club, and they're just surrounded by tragedy at the moment. They've got the futures in doubt. They had a real crack against Lauderdale, had the last 5 scoring shots and still lost by a point.
Yeah, look, you couldn't get any more heartbreak, could you, after the week that they've had? I mean, you were out there and saw it firsthand, and you'd always expected them to come out and lift for this kind of game. They had a real dip, and it's a shame they probably couldn't get the points. So you were there. Was there anything that they should have? Should they have won the game?
There's no doubt Lauderdale had more of the general play in the first 3 quarters, but that last 5 minutes, Hobart were all over them. They continually pumped the ball inside their 50. They had a couple of really gettable shots to take the lead, and they just couldn't take it. And you've got to feel someone like Graham Fox, he really is the heart and soul of the Hobart Footy Club. He's there week in, week out. He's always positive, but he was like his team. He was crushed after the game.
Yeah, it's a pretty tough one, isn't it, to take? It was a long week, and a win would have lifted the spirits, but not to be.
Yeah, what was a bit surprising and a little bit disappointing was the lack of numbers that turned up. I mean, the Hobart supporters there were passionate and were right in it, especially that last game, and giving plenty of advice to the umpiring going on at the time. But even Darren Winter said, the Lauderdale coach, how disappointed he was in the numbers that turned up to see Hobart, given the week they've had.
So I thought, for a club that's got their back against the wall, I thought their support today was pretty ordinary.
Yeah.
I thought we would have had a really big crowd here to get behind their club, and I think from their point of view, that would have been a little bit disappointing. So I suppose that probably could have got them over the line in the end if they had got their supporters around, rallied them around them in their time of need, and just to see the crowd here today was pretty ordinary.
And Adam, you saw the TSL's best player, Cameron Thurley, put on a show at Belred against North Lonnie on Saturday.
Yeah, look, I've seen Thurles a couple of times this year, and look, I think he's elevated his game to another level. I didn't think it was possible. He was probably the best player in the state last year. But he's single-handedly winning Clarence games at the moment. They didn't play their best on the weekend, but he dragged them across the line. Whenever they were challenged, he was the guy who kicked the goal to steady the ship. He's had 7 goals, he's had 25 odd touches, 13, 14 marks, and I honestly reckon if he was a couple of years younger, the GWS would probably be giving him a call, and he'd have been having a chat to Sheedy, but he's probably just that little bit too old for another shot at AFL.
Yeah, and he's, like you're saying, spending time in the midfield, but and drifting forward, and he's second on the TSL goal kicking list.
Yeah, look, if there was any knock on him that I had, his goal kicking at times can elude him, I think. I've seen him miss some pretty gettable set shots, but he kicked 7-1, and he sees a goal that he kicked from the boundary after the half-time siren. Well, no other player in the league could probably kick that, or it's 2 or 3 times out of 10. So he's up and about, and when Clarence get their full team back, it's even more dangerous.
And Burnie had another big 100-point win over South Lonnie, and they've moved into third spot and are probably going to be hard to move from there.
Yeah, look, they've got a fairly nice run home, I believe, and I haven't seen them yet this year, but you see them on paper and they seem to just be, moving along a bit like Launceston, sort of just chugging along nicely, and they'll be there come the pointy end, and at this stage it looks like they'll probably get crack at Clarence in that first final.
All right, Adam, well, thanks very much for your thoughts. Remember, for all your TSL stories, pick up your copy of the Mercury or go to the MercuryOnline.